what I'd like to do is have you bring your journey of building your custom home to life.
Sure.
Kind of like from the beginning where you said, hey, I need a custom home to the end. And now it's been a whole year for you in your custom home.
Yep.
You're a family of 6.
Yes.
You have kids of all varying ages come into the house, go into the house.
Yep.
You have a lovely wife, Lori, who has her world.
It's her domain.
This is her domain.
Yep.
And you have your things that you want to bring in. So tell me how the start of the journey that Built by Krueger took you on to get you, like the first thing, like concept design.
Sure. Those early phases were really helpful, I think, with Brett, who was the architect that we had. I like the fact that, hey, it was an architect that you had sort of suggested and were obviously partnering with on our project. So that was helpful. We didn't need to go out and find an architect that we knew nothing about, right? And while I probably could have used my contacts to find an architect, it was helpful to have that sort of initial suggestion from you. And I would sort of say, hey, Brett was great. We clicked with him straight away. I liked the way that he communicated with us. He did a number of sort of interviews to get a feel for the kind of space that we were looking for and the type of house that we were looking for. I really liked the fact that he started a bit on the outside externally, which helps you get an idea of the kind of home that you want to have by looking at it from the outside, which seems really weird because, of course, a lot of what you're doing is on the inside. But I think it helped us connect more with the type of house it should be.
Yeah.
And that helped us then, I think, sort of think about that from an interior design perspective. So that was really good.
Because the first stage is, okay, how many bedrooms do you need? What spaces do you need in the house?
Right.
What's the building envelope that we're able to build in?
Yep.
And he starts putting the boxes together and, putting the walls in, but it doesn't bring life to it.
Exactly. And I think, he started to listen to a lot of the input that we had around the space that we wanted for our main living area, which we knew would be the most important space of the house, right? It's where we are for, 80% of the time when we're in the house, right, is sort of in that area. And that whole layout and that concept was an important, part of what the home should feel like on the inside. And so he spent, a number of sort of iterations there with us to get that tweaked.
I mean, you think about your main floor. You walk in, grand entry, awesome staircase. You walk in, expansive kitchen, built-in kitchen nook, big, great room, pocket office. Everything's like really thought out. The glass on the back of the house that brings the inside to the outside all into one. And thank you for hosting so many awesome gatherings in your new home.
Well, it was sort of, kind of the intent was, hey, to have somewhere that we could really host gatherings.
Yeah.
And people, it's been used pretty extensively. We've had a lot of people in the house and it works.
Yeah.
But I would say, we wanted to also, expand that living space externally as well. We'd had a large deck on the back of our house previously, and we wanted to do that again and actually have something even more effective than we had previously. And so that was a big part of our, our kind of philosophy, if you like, in terms of how we wanted the space to look. And it was really important as well that it was a really functional space for Lori. And she spent, that's her office, right? She spends a lot of time there in that space, as a homemaker for our family. And so we wanted to make sure that, hey, she had a really comfortable space to work in and be in, and that it worked for her. So it was, trying to accommodate all of these, design desires into one encompassing space. And I think we achieved it. We're not ostentatious people, at least I hope we're not. And we wanted to have
you're trash.
We wanted to have a comfortable house. And we wanted something that, was actually styled really nicely. And I think the way in which the entryway came together, the staircase came together, I think was just, they were nice design touches without being over the top. And that was really what we were going for.
Absolutely. Because you had a goal that said, hey, I want a nice home, functional home. Mm-hmm. It's got to fit into the neighborhood.
Right.
Right. And so you still had some parameters. Mm-hmm. It wasn't this, 9,200 square foot mansion.
Yeah, I mean, the lots are pretty small, right? The lots are small, so we were contained anyway.
We took you through the conceptual design, and, we kind of said, okay, here's 4 different floor plan options. You start narrowing it down. We blend them together. Brett does an amazing job at that. Yep. And then we get some exterior elevations. Yep. And then we take and, we put some concept pricing to it. Because what we want to try and avoid is designing something that you don't want to afford.
Sure.
And so we that was kind of the first step in that design build process.
Yeah, and it was really helpful, I think, for us to say, okay, yes, this is directionally correct, right, in terms of what we want to have. We know that it, fits the budget and is kind of manageable for us. And so, yeah, that was great to be able to get through that stage to say, okay, yeah, let's now start to bring this a little bit more to a kind of a final design, not completely from an interior perspective, but at least from the major shell and the layout of the rooms and everything else.
And the energy. I mean, that was really important to you.
We actually went through quite a process with the city with some of the energy standards that they had, and there was a lot of challenge for folks that are involved with the Marshall Fire to really meet those energy standards from a cost standpoint, and perfectly understand why the city was pushing on those. And we wanted that to be optional, which the city of Louisville actually granted in the end,
Correct.
which was
a big win.
Of them. It was good. I mean, it was necessary, I think, not for us, but for many of our neighbors and a lot of folks affected, that they had choice there in terms of what they could do. We were lucky. We were able to, afford a more efficient system, a more energy efficient system. I wanted the house to be comfortable, but also, as green as we could possibly make it. So we had
a lot of fun working through the different options.
And trying to work out sort of, okay, what does this mean, right? In reality. And I think it was, I was pretty set on at least going as far as heat pumps, if not, kind of potentially further. We ended up with heat pumps, 3 heat pump systems. So, 2 cooling systems, one for heating and cooling, one for the main levels, and then one for the upper floor, and then the heating and the cooling, the hot water system, which was a heat pump as well. And
they all have electric backup as well.
They do as well, yeah. And it could have been gas. We ended up choosing electric as the backup source, but they're working very well. I would say the one thing where I actually did a little bit of extra research was on the hot water heater, heat pump system, and invested a little time in sort of watching some YouTube videos and stuff. And I would say, hey, you and I ended up chatting about it and saying, hey, let's exhaust this thing on the outside of the house so that we wouldn't get cold air blowing into the house as that heat pump is working. So
and that air source hot water heater, heat pump system is, I mean, I'm sure they've been around forever, but it's getting into the residential market a lot heavier. I mean, it was even hard to get them ordered in time. There were supply chain issues. And it's a newer technology where you have half of a HVAC system and the rest is plumbing.
Yep.
And then you're like, okay, whose is it? Is it a mechanical contractor's or is it a plumbing contractor's?
Right.
And then you're getting in there and trying to figure out, okay, it's smart. I mean, it's wicked smart. You can have it all electric. You can have it do the heat pump to a certain temp, but it's taking the air in that mechanical room area and making magic.
Yep.
And then it's got to exhaust that cold air somewhere.
Sure. Yeah. So, again, sort of watching some of these YouTube videos, I saw guys, that had one in their garage in Florida. And of course, they were delighted with having cold air exhausting into their garage. And, our circumstance was different. And so, it takes ambient temperature or the ambient air from the room that is in, or even, of course, pulling in air from other parts of the house. But and then using that to to create the heat
the preheat for the water.
For the water. I love that thing. It's amazing. I mean, we get so much hot water. We've never run out of hot water. It's a huge tank.
Yeah, it's like 80 gallons.
And I liked it better than a tankless, gas tankless hot water system, which is kind of vogue right now. But we used one of those in a rental house that we were in. And, you had to stand there for a while that thing got warm. And it felt like you were just using so much energy to drive that hot water usage. Now, of course, you're not constantly keeping it warm. So you do get some economies of scale, and you do get some benefit from that. But I really felt like the heat pump was the way to go. And I'm really delighted we went that way, actually.
That's awesome.
Great.
No, some of those on-demand gas hot water heaters aren't big enough to support a house like yours, so you might have to have two systems.
Right.
So the cost of it, because it needs to keep up and fill the bathtub in time. So it's like, okay, what if you're filling the bathtub and somebody decides to shower? Okay, it's not going to keep up. So then you got to add another system, and it gets not as efficient economically at the install point.
Yep.
But
this works out well, and we have again when. 3 of our kids are now, back at college. Thankfully. Summer's over, kids. But, when they're all home, there's showers going all day long, as you could probably imagine, simultaneously, and no issues at all. It works great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And the building envelope on your house, I think the code target on your build was high. There were certain areas that you said, no, if it makes sense, let's talk to the energy consultants. I'd like to do better.
Yep.
And so you did that in some of your insulation.
Yep.
We have a unvented attic space at your house.
Yep.
Which, creates a real building envelope all the way up in the roof, all the way down to below the foundation. We got insulation under your foundation.
Yep.
And
it makes such a huge difference.
Yeah.
The house is comfortable. It doesn't matter what floor you're on. So it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter if you're in the basement or you're on this hot floor. In fact, sometimes Laurie says, man, it's cold up here. Oh, like that's upstairs.
Upstairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is on, 95-degree days.
Yeah.
And, we know as well, I mean, I could just tell by how often the air conditioning cycles, for example, or the heating cycles, we have, it's a very tight house, and I love it because I think the, having owned and lived in many older properties, you just, you get aggravated with those things. I mean,
your house, your building envelope is very tight. To meet the new energy codes, your house has to be super tight.
Yep.
Which requires us to bring in the ERV as well. So your house is more controllable. And your fresh air is more controllable. You're not getting stale air, and you're not getting air leakage. So it's easier to control an environment like that.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And I think the fresh air system works well. I mean, you could always tell, right, when you go away from your house for a period and you come back in. Yeah. You go on vacation or whatever. It's like you come in, the first thing is like, oh, is this what my house really smells like? And right. Because the air is stale, for example. Whereas hey, we come back and it's a fresher air when you walk in. You can tell straight away.
It's not musty. It hasn't been locked up, and that's what's amazing about a new home.
Yeah. So the standards and the improvements on the materials and particularly the insulation are amazing, actually.
Yeah. So in your design process, so we went from the conceptual, we get into the detailed design, the structure, the beams, the structural loads, the energy ratings, and we get through that process, and you got a construction budget.
Yep.
From your concept estimate to your construction budget, was there a hiccup or a scare for you at all?
No, I mean, not a scare per se. I mean, it tweaked a little bit. But I would say, hey, probably where we got a little more bleed was later on when we made significant sort of design, changes in terms of, hey, types of fittings, fixtures, and other design changes that we made ourselves, right? So
Correct.
we chose to do those things, right?
Yeah.
So for me that's better than surprises. But I would say, the sort of conceptual budget and the construction budget were really close to one another. And so from my perspective, hey, it was within the range of, acceptable, didn't scare me at all. And of course, we were at a period when we chose to build of, incredible fluctuation in material prices and stuff like that. I mean, just, lumber,
supply chain issues.
supply chain, electrical fittings, and these kind of things. I mean, again, if I reflect, I actually have the in our business the number one kind of material pricing index solution for commercial construction in the United States on the mechanical electrical side, and so I knew that the prices were going crazy. I mean, they were fluctuating all the time.
Yeah.
Very hard to predict. I know that because we try to put predictive AI onto these prices, and we can only the best we can do is like within about sort of 5 days we can tell you whether prices will change or not, and very challenging time. So
it was.
So I think overall I would say, hey, we scored really well. I think in terms of not only that, conceptual budget to the construction budget, but then also, the overall final cost of the construction itself.
Yeah, because
I would say we're within, from my perspective, within the realms of reasonable, in that we through our own choices of the final finishing pushed a little bit some of those prices higher than we originally envisaged.
Yeah, because we go into it and we build with assumptions. We say, okay, this is an allowance.
Yep.
Hey, if you want, this is your home. This is your money.
Sure.
We want to execute your vision, your dream. And so, people will make choices. Some people will make choices like, I really don't care about that. And I'm like, well, you should care about that, but this is your home. And then there's other people I'm like, okay, you really care about that.
Yep.
I don't, but it's your home.
Sure.
And let's do it. And let's invest. Let's spend your money and do this. And it can be a lot of fun. So we took you through the conceptual, then to the design phase, and then into the build phase.
Right.
So this is where we got boots on the ground now. Your build team has been assembled. You have Brett, the amazing architect. You have Jonathan Wallace, on-site engineering, doing the engineering. You have Jackie Gilbert as the interior designer, and then you got the Krueger build team, right?
And the amazing Mackenzie. Let's not forget about her.
Let's not forget about Mackenzie.
Yeah,
she kept all the T's crossed and all the I's dotted. She's amazing.
Really great.
So tell us from, okay, now we've done this planning process, and now they're getting ready to go.
Yep.
Okay. Tell me about the journey from there on out, seeing from the first excavation.
Sure. Well, I would say, first of all, really nice kickoff. Thanks to the Krueger team. We had a little, little sort of groundbreaking ceremony, which was great. And it was nice to have, the team were there with us as we did that. And once it got going, it was interesting to see everything come to life. Some scary moments, I have to say, when we saw the foundations laid out and we're like, oh my goodness, like we have a small lot and this takes up a lot of space.
You're like, oh, this is bigger than we thought.
Yeah. And, luckily though, we had the model and we had the drawings that included the lot. And so I was able to do some some straightforward measurement checks. And I was like, okay, yeah, I know how this is going to feel compared to before. And it turned out being, I was right on sort of how that would turn out.
Well, and the excavation is bigger than the structure.
For sure.
Right.
For sure. That's always,
but it'll stop your heart.
It's always alarming.
Yeah.
And we were very lucky that for, a crate of wine, very nice wine, very expensive wine, my neighbor actually let us put all of his soil on his lot, which was great.
Yeah.
But I would say, watching it sort of come out of the ground, get to the point of foundation, it felt like, oh, okay, we're on this journey now, which is good. And once it started to frame up, it was great for us as a family to be able to sort of go in and kind of explore the space a bit and say, hey, what is it, this is how this is going to feel. And like, this is great.
Yeah.
I mean,
who gets which room?
Yeah. I mean, it takes a long time, even though it was a short amount of time for our build. I think it was about 10 and a half months, something like that. You're still impatient, right? Because what you really want to get to is sort of those more finishing stages where it starts to feel more real. You can really see things come to life.
No, I hear clients say that a lot. They're like, hey, I mean, duration's one thing, but wow, there's this foundation and then there's a structure and that goes really fast.
It goes really quick.
And then it goes really slow as all the brains of the house kind of go in.
Sure.
And they're like, how come nothing's happening? I'm like, no, there's things happening.
Yeah. So. Well, I never felt like nothing was happening. I mean, there's, one thing I would sort of say is, hey, you could see different subcontractors coming in to do their thing. And so you always felt like there was, constant movement, which was great. And just being able to, work, with Mackenzie was great. She, every week we got the email and this is what we've done and here's what we're planning to do next week. I would say I have a lot of neighbors and friends that are, rebuilding houses and building. Some are building custom homes. Some are building, more sort of production type home. None of them got the communication that we seem to get, which I really appreciated.
It's where so many projects fall apart. So many expectations fall apart. And we've been doing this for 25 years. And we said, if we have to make time, it costs too much not to make the time to communicate with customers.
Yeah. And it was huge. I would sort of say, hey, one of our neighbors, a lot of the homes on our street now have been rebuilt. One of my neighbors said to me, he said, I think you're probably the only person that's happy with their builder. I said, yeah, I think so.
Well, and it has to do with communication and commitment to quality from our team. And like Mackenzie being our project specialist, staying on top of it.
Yep. And we knew that we took a, more expensive route with a custom home.
Yeah.
We knew that we were building with a premium custom home builder. Did we question ourselves on occasions? Absolutely.
All right.
But I think, Lori in particular, I would say, really saw the difference in how our home was constructed compared to others.
Yeah.
And she knew then that, hey, we're, and I did as well. Hey, we made the right choice here in terms of who we were selecting to build with. And, a lot of it just comes down to, the quality of the work that you can see, the way in which the as it was being built, the way in which the site was left at the end of the week. And
how were the subcontractors? Like
subcontractors, yeah. I mean, great. I would sort of say, hey, if some people ask me, there's, with some of the suppliers and subcontractors you used, maybe didn't all love the style that they had all the time, with a few of them. But I would say, hey, the substance and actually what they were able to deliver was bang on, right? So, I mean, those things are, you sort of forgive some of that stuff. And we were really working with the core team, which was Mackenzie, with Jackie, who was doing the interior design, and obviously Brett at the early phases there. And I always felt like, hey, that core team and also the Krueger team that were on site were absolutely in, working for us, right? If that makes sense in terms of the care that they took, the way in which they communicated with us, the way in which they managed the subcontractors. You could tell, hey, you guys were managing this to the standard that you wanted to have. And that was important to me.
Yeah. We want to have fun when we do it, and so many people can create issues with their subs and animosity or in how people treat people.
Sure.
And we want to treat everybody, we want everybody to have a good day.
Yeah. And I felt like, the subs were, sometimes you couldn't tell who was a sub and who was a Krueger team member. And that was important too, right? In the way in which, again, a way in which they communicated and worked with us. So yeah, it was great actually. Yeah.
So we're getting down, we get through the drywall phase, electrical, all the brains are in.
Yep.
Now we get into the fun selections. Okay. So tell me about your design selection journey.
Yeah.
And how that went for you guys.
Yeah. So we worked with Jackie, and who, again, that was sort of part of your selection was, hey, here's a designer that we think will work well with you. What I really liked about Jackie was that, hey, she was, very personable. I think connected really well with both myself and Lori. And that was important because I think, you've got to have a meeting of the minds when it comes to interior design, right? You can't be sort of having stuff, jammed down your throat, right, as it were, in terms of, oh, you need to do this, or, so many choices that you're just, you're spinning, right? You just can't get anywhere. And I would say the thing I really liked with Jackie was that, first of all, she spent time, getting to know us and understanding some of the things that we liked, right? So the things from, our previous house and some, things that we'd kind of ideas that we had and stuff like that, and kind of took that on board and would come back with, I would say, hey, normally sort of 3 options around stuff that she knew that we needed to make decisions on, and, listen to, hey, some of the things that we wanted to have incorporated, like, things like practicality of some of these, fixtures and fittings and how things were designed. And actually sort of incorporated those, I think, in a way that was really well done. She took some of Brett's designs and tweaked them. So particularly, the layout of the master bath, for example, she had, I would say, an enhancement on the layout that Brett had suggested. Brett was able to incorporate that, fully into the design model. So, again, it was that sort of consultative process that I think was really helpful. And I think actually, at the end really brought out, the house overall, in terms of what it could and should be. And I think if we'd have skipped that step and that process, it actually would have been a nightmare, I think, because trying to choose those things yourself are impossible unless you have that, you have that design streak yourself or that desire. And we had a lot of neighbors that had choices to make with some of their builds where part of the choice was, hey, do we have a designer or not? And of course, there's an expense to having a designer work with you. But, from my perspective, that was money well spent. Not only did it sort of finish the character of the house, but also I think just made it an easier process. And Jackie was just great to work with in terms of, she never pushed back hard if we sort of said, hey, no, this is not quite right. She'd come back at it again. Yeah. And
I see great. That, there's some things in the house that are like, okay, oh, you want this over here, and is that going to work? And Jackie would make sure that your ideas blend it. You're like, okay, you walk in, I'm like, what is this wallpaper?
Right.
in the powder bath. I'm like, what are they doing? And I always get nervous because I'm like, all right, this all better flow together.
Yep.
And then you walk in and you're like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
this is amazing.
Yeah.
And
really
you
works.
guys,
Yeah.
had the ability to say, we haven't quite found the bling for the backsplash yet.
Right.
And you guys said, your mission is to go find it.
Yep.
And, Krueger said, go find it.
Yep.
And you found this backsplash material and, and just brought it in. And, I think you probably picked up, 15 different samples and we're putting them all over and going back. It's kind of a hassle to do that. But, that was kind of your incorporation. And now you look at, we did this entertainment area, where you have your beverage centers and, some tchotchkes.
Yeah.
And then you have your kitchen and it just ties together.
It all ties together. And it was, I mean, that was Laurie actually. She went out and sort of looked through this sort of tile supplier and said, hey, I think, come and look at this. I think this will work. And I looked at it, I was like, yeah, well, it's sort of busy and it's not busy, if that makes sense. And we're like, okay, yeah, let's go for it. And then when we started to look for the backsplash for the bar area, we were like, oh, wait a minute, there's the opposite of this, right? Yeah. We had the white version over in the kitchen and then the black version of that tile over in the bar. We're like, oh yeah, this just works.
It looks good.
Yeah, it looks great.
Does.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's so much fun, when you get in and you start seeing this come together and then the fabric on the built-in, that was you saying.
Well, that was Vegas, baby.
Yeah, Vegas.
Yeah, so Laurie and I wanted we wanted some, a little bit of bling here and there. Again, not ostentatious, but something that would just give it a bit of a
pop.
A bit of a pop. And we were sitting in the Grand Lux Cafe for anybody that's had the chance to go there in the Venetian hotel in Las Vegas, and they had this sort of gold. Well, they had a sort of banquet seating in this particular area we're in. It was sort of like a gold velvet.
Yeah.
I said to Laura, that's kind of is that the bling we need? And yeah, sure enough, we found this.
You got inspiration.
We got inspiration.
Travels.
We came back. We chatted with Jackie. She brought some samples, and we said, "Is this one, Jackie?" And she said, "Are you sure?" We said, yeah, this is the one. And actually, it just looks great.
It's awesome.
Yeah, and it was nice. I don't even want to think what that banquet cost. Between the
awesome.
Between the material and then the whole thing is sort of custom built, but it's great and it's a great sort of area for people to hang. So
no, it's exciting to see your home now and that you've been in it, for a year now since the Marshall Fire.
Yep.
And it's been 3 years since the Marshall Fire.
Sure.
But you've been living in your house. You were one of the first ones complete on your street.
Yep.
And the expectation from after you guys, okay, we finish it, we hand over the keys, everybody celebrates, bye. Krueger's done. We don't have to do anything else, right?
Well, there's the odd thing.
Yeah.
And I would say, hey, great response from the Krueger team in the early stages, of course, where we had our punch list like everybody does, those sort of little things. And, all that got taken care of really quickly. Some of it actually while we were even on vacation, which was perfect. And then sort of subsequently, I would say even, beyond even those sort of early few months where you always find some things, quick responses on stuff or anything that's happened, whether that was, we had, a couple of breakers go and, that shouldn't be popping. And we had a malfunction with the oven and stuff like that. So again, I think you guys reacted really quickly, had the suppliers out and stuff like that. So, I mean, again, at that point, we've got a functioning house that needs to function. Yeah. And so, a lot of pressure to rectify some things. But I would say it wasn't a long list and, it was taken care of quickly, which is important. Yeah.
No, I think that we really push our team to say, okay, guys, you got to get this done.
Yep.
And, we have Heidi, who manages our warranty.
Yep.
And she's on it. She's on the subs. She's really pushing.
She comes back straight away, which is great. And I also, I would sort of say, hey, we missed out the phase, which is, hey, before handover, when you have your whole team out to go through the house.
Yeah.
Before we get the keys to sort of say, okay, does everybody agree it's up to the standard that you guys want to have at a handover point? And, again, you don't see that with other builders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we do that. So what we've incorporated is our entire team, from our bookkeeper, project specialist, to our marketing team.
Yep.
Everybody goes out.
Yep.
During the rough phase, learns about builds, asks questions, highlights things, spots things like, how come this window is operable in the mechanical room and the one in the bathroom isn't?
Right.
And our team is like, oh, wow, we caught this. And it wasn't, because everybody gets focused, in the build and doesn't always have that third-party perspective. So we try and bring our entire team in to get that third-party perspective and say, oh, nobody else would have caught that.
Yep.
And then at the end, okay, everybody, before we do this with the clients, here's a roll of tape. Go tell us what doesn't look right, and we work really hard to improve quality throughout the process.
Yeah, which I really appreciate. And I think as well, from a company culture standpoint, right? Yeah. I lead a large team, right? I understand, culture and getting buy-in from people, and you have to be, for you to get sort of the best performance out of your team, they have to be bought in on what you're doing, right? Yeah. And it can't be, this is just a job and I'm coming here and I'm doing this bit of it and everybody else does their thing. I think you involving the team in that way actually gets them emotionally invested in what you're doing, which means, hey, they're going to be performant at their jobs, right? Yeah. And as a result, the overall team performance of Krueger then gets to a much higher standard as a result.
It does.
Yeah.
So that's something fun that we do.
Yeah, I like it.
So, Lawrence, through this whole design, build, custom home process that you went through, everyone would do a few things differently. Okay. I don't know that we've spent hours in design and building and changing and processing and thinking. Now you've lived in the home for a year.
Yep.
Tell me, what are some of the things that you would do differently as you've thought this through? Just be honest.
Yeah, I think
because not every idea works out in the end.
Yeah, sure. And we had, I would say, hey, there's a couple of things where we're like, this is in the wrong place, but it's like one or two things.
Well,
it's not.
What are they?
It's not a lot. Well, I would sort of say, hey, where the microwave ended up is not where the microwave should be, right?
There you go.
Just some stuff like that. And we could have pushed a little bit more into the kind of the pantry area that we have there.
Yeah.
So, just some minor things like that where you're like, I really like it. I think Lori would love it if the banquette was just a couple of feet wider and stuff like that. So there's always those things where where it's not 100% perfect, but I would say, hey, compared to something which is, an off-the-shelf build where you have no design input at all, you have a long laundry list of stuff where you would have something different, right? The house as it was originally, while we did renovations and did upgrades to the property, there were still things that were just structurally you couldn't really change. Yeah. And so it was never what we really wanted to have. It was close, but it was never really what we want to have. This is very close, almost perfect, right, in terms of living space. So yeah, you definitely sort of have ideas in hindsight. I think, for me, if anything, where I could have spent more time, and I just did not have the time actually was, and that was, just
circumstances,
a lot of pressure work, a lot of, working with the insurance company and challenges after the Marshall fire. So, a lot of time spent doing those things, a little bit less time doing the fun stuff of a custom build. And so, a couple of people asked me, hey, what would you do differently? And I would sort of say, hey, hindsight's always 2020. I felt, like I needed to get my family back in a home.
Yeah.
And not take a long time about that. I had I got a high pressure job. Kids were going in and out for college. There was just a lot going on, right, with our family. And so to drag that process out over several years, I think would have been tough for us. And so, getting back into a home was really important. I probably would have spent more time on some of the low voltage stuff and having a little more fun with the gadgets and sort of the nerdy stuff than I did. We actually ended up, doing a great job. It was actually really good. Again, it was another sort of recommendation from the Krueger team in terms of, somebody to come in to help with the entertainment systems and other things that we put into the house. Probably could have spent more time, more money, for sure.
I was going to say, definitely more money.
Would have been the challenge in that area. But those are probably things that were, kind of would have been nice to spend a little bit more time, had a little bit more fun with that.
No, that's good.
But other than that, I would sort of say, hey, everything, was good in terms of, us being able to give our input and do what we wanted to do.
So, because I always like to hear what is something, because when I'm in another custom home situation and somebody says, hey, I wish I would have done this different, and I'm in that similar situation again, I can be like, guys, let's really consider doing this.
Yeah, take the time.
I've had the people, our past clients, say, hey, take more time on this, spend more money on this. Because, we want to try and get, 99% of the expectations met.
Sure.
It's hard to communicate all those expectations through the journey because you don't know them all yet.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we really hit a home run actually with the back elevation of the house where, we saw some initial design concepts from
Brett.
obviously from Brett, and they were good, and it gave me a certain sort of feel. And then I think when we started to look at, options for for that back elevation with the glass area and the sliding door, again, sort of, Lori sees some stuff, right? We were down the supplier looking at a particular door. We're just like, okay, this works. And then Laurie's like, well, what about this over here?
I warned you.
Yeah, and it was, that was definitely on the list of, premium upgrades that we made. But I think it transformed that the back part of the house and again, that main living area. And
is that a 16-foot or 12-foot?
Oh, it's got to be 16. Yeah.
So
I'm not sure. It's big.
Foot.
Or it's basically three. Yeah, it's basically three large panes where two of them open up fully, so it just pushes back to one pane depth. Just it's great visually. Whether it's closed or open, and then you and I had a little tussle over the additional windows a little further down, where you sort of say, well, if I do them this way, it'll cost a little bit less, and I'm like. Yeah, but let's do this, right? And do the floor to ceiling window, and it just all tied in great, and it just ended up being the right decision.
It helped with all the expansive covered patio out back.
Yeah,
because sometimes if you do so much glass on one side, but with the cover that you have over the patio, doing the floor to ceiling glass is a good call.
Yeah, and I think it. We get so much light that comes in, natural light, without it being sort of, feeling like you're at the center of the sun, right? Again, because we had that, we had that sort of the cover on the back deck there. That just turned out great.
Tell me what advice you would give to someone who is considering building a custom home. What are some of the things that you say, hey, interview, research? Tell me what you would tell them.
Yeah, so not too many things I would do differently. I think, definitely, work with a builder that has, a design build approach. I think that was a huge difference for us. And again, comparing to, neighbors and friends who have, built custom homes, I would say, hey, that definitely is a huge advantage in terms of you really getting a good understanding of how it should be constructed and making sure that there's a fluid kind of communication between the design intent and what's actually getting constructed.
Mm-hmm.
That's always a huge issue in construction projects. Yeah. So that's sort of number one. I think the second one is, hey, make sure, subcontractors are actually critical, part of the process and understanding, a builder that has had long-standing relationships with their subcontractors and making sure that they have that is really important. I mean, you can't do that with every single subcontractor all of the time, but if you can get, 90% of the subcontractors are going to be, subcontractors that have worked with that builder on many, many projects. That's always a sure sign of, hey, you're going to have a successful build because they trust each other. You as the general contractor would not be utilizing these subcontractors unless you knew, hey, they were hitting the right standard and they would be, a natural part of the team, because there's too much friction with subs always. So I think definitely that. I think I would definitely sort of request, hey, access to the 3D model in a way that you can interact with it if you're able to get hold of some tools that will help you do that, or make sure, hey, you spend the time with the architect to get that feel. And then, give yourself, make sure you have enough time, I think, to be able to, to spend on the type of choices that you're going to be making, right? And having to make. And that, again, that's where the interior designer is really important and probably should not be underestimated, actually, the effect that they have in the overall outcome that you're going to get. And so really understanding that dynamic.
We've made a decision in our company to not do projects without designers anymore.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Because
too hard.
Well, I think as well, you're going to
customer experience.
Yeah, and you're going to come out with probably an unsatisfactory result for everybody, because at the end of the day, people think they've got a great eye for design, and well, if you've not been doing it for a long time and have an understanding of the materials and the things to be considering as part of that interior design, you will get it wrong. Like it's in your face wrong.
Yeah, it's tough. So well, Lawrence, one last question.
Okay.
When you take the missus out for dinner in Boulder County, what's your go-to dinner place that you love to take her to?
I don't know, because it changes actually fairly frequently.
Just one. I don't need 6, just one.
I know, but
I'm looking for a favorite currently.
Oh, gosh. We cook so much at home. That's actually a hard question.
The missus cooks really well.
Yeah.
So I understand.
And, I would say, well, a place I need to take her back to, and we've not since COVID, which is bad, but it's a favorite of hers, and we need to go back, is Brasserie 1010 in Boulder.
Brasserie 1010.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't been there.
Oh, it's nice.
Maybe that's where we
need to go. Some steak frite. That's good. I mean, there's great choices in Louisville, obviously, and
but just one.
Yeah, but
Brasserie's 1010.
Brasserie 1010.
You, Lori, Carrie, and I.
Yep.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay,
right,
sounds like a deal. All right.
Well, hey, thanks for coming on the show, and really appreciate you,
my
brother.
Pleasure. Yeah. Thank you. Likewise.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Built by Insights. Tune in next Friday to hear more stories with a new guest.